you. So at some level, whether you're aware of it consciously or not, it affects you. Maybe it's your family members. I don't know who your peer group is. Maybe it's people at work. But it's the people that you care what they think or feel. Even if you say you don't, we all care at some level, right? Who are those people for you? That's your peer group. And your life will be a direct reflection of the expectations of your peer group. And here's the challenge. What if you have a higher expectation for your life than the people you surround yourself with? Higher expectation for what you want from your life, in terms of your passion or joy or love. Higher expectation of what you want to accomplish. Higher expectation of what you want to feel or spirituality or whatever it is. Well, now you have a conflict. Because now what will happen is if you have a higher expectation than your peer group who really does care about you will pull you down. Not because they're trying to pull you down, because they don't want to lose you. So they'll say, hey, come on, don't be so serious. Don't be working at that all the time. Come on, relax. Geez, what's the matter with you? And they will find ways to undermine what's going on. Not because they don't love you, because they do love you. Because unconsciously they sense, oh my God, you might change, grow, or expand. What would that mean to me? I could get left behind. And most of us want love so much at an unconscious level, if not at a conscious level. We want acceptance so much that through time, gradually, over the years, we lose what our dreams are. We lose our expectations. And what we once thought was a must is kind of a, well, interesting. We don't even think about it anymore. It's not even a should. Or maybe it's a should someday if all comes together. And so I would say to you that you have an opportunity to get a fresh look at your life. This is a crash course in transforming every area of your life that you want to. The value is we're going to create an environmental standard here that's quite extraordinary. We're going to create it together. Mark my words. Whoever you spend time with, you will become. So you better choose real well. Am I saying get rid of your friends? No. Here's the other way you can do it. You can lead. You can have such a high standard that no matter how low the standard is above you or how nice it is, you can take it from good to excellent to outstanding for your friends if they have the desire and if they have enough caring to be with you. But you're going to have to make those choices. It's not the kind of conversation that you hear in a positive thinking kind of environment. I'm not saying go surround yourself with positive people. I'm saying you got to make sure that wherever you are, you at least have some core friends that have a standard that is so high that both of you will grow. It's like if you want to play tennis, you don't play against somebody who's worse than you are on a regular basis and expect to get better. It just doesn't happen. If you got the guts, you play somebody who's better than you are and you work like crazy so you can move up. And maybe you have some people that play at your level too, but you got to play at that game. Raise that standard. If I was going to say, like in 2 words, what this is all about, it's about stepping up, man. And you got to decide to step up or pull back. So you got to take a look and say, okay, what is it that I really want? And I got to make some really conscious choices. And if you make those, you can have more fun you've ever had before. It's not like living a life that's totally disciplined, because discipline never lasts. Because discipline is as painful and you do it anyway. You got to do it anyway in the beginning, but after a while, it becomes natural for you because it's so rewarding to play at this level called outstanding, you won't want to go back. It won't be, I got to discipline myself. It'll be, this is who I am. And that's when things really shift. Tell you a secret. It's so easy to feel good. The only reason you're not is standards. You don't have a standard to feel good all the time because society says that feeling bad, that's natural. Feeling good all the time, you got a problem. Right? Second, you don't believe it. And thirdly, you don't know the strategy consciously. Now here's what you need to understand. Any emotion you're feeling is just a pattern. It's a pattern of how you use your body. It's a pattern of how you use language. And it's a pattern of what you tend to focus on and believe about it. Those 3 patterns make up all your emotions. If you're upset, you're using your body in a certain way. You're saying certain things outside and inside your head in a certain way. And I don't mean this self-talk positive thinking. I mean certain words trigger you. Like if I say, Michael, you're mistaken. That feels different than if I say, Michael, you are wrong. That feels different than if I say, Michael, you are lying. Right? How many can feel the difference between those 3? If someone's saying to you, say, I. So there are certain words, we're not like being positive, certain words that will fire off your emotion in different ways, different levels. And your belief, what you're certain is going to happen, affects you. So people get in habits again and again, and then they think they're not doing it. They think it just happens because something environment happens and they start doing it. It's just a pattern you learned a long time ago, and you've done it so long, it's ingrained. So there are three patterns. I call it the triad, that everything that you feel are created out of, and whether you do something or not is based on how you feel. For example, faith, determination are triads. They are nothing but a big word, a generalization for three things you're doing when you're determined. Use your body in a certain way when you're determined. You do certain things in your head, what you say to yourself or out loud, and you picture or focus on certain things and believe certain things. When you're fearful, you do something different with your body, something different with your language, something different with what you focus on and believe. How many follow the general thought of this? Say, I. So you don't get depressed, you do depression. See, most people think if they take antidepressants, they won't get depressed. Bull. I do it all the time. Some people take in maximum dosages, 6, 7, 8 pills at a time, still get depressed. Because your body will override all of that. Because depression comes from a triad. Some people get depressed because they think they're getting older. Some people get depressed because they think they're going to lose their relationship. Some people go depressed. We all come up with reasons. Whenever you think your future is uncertain, when you feel like you have no future, when you feel completely overwhelmed, like you can't figure it out, then people feel depressed. Doesn't matter how many drugs you take. So the challenge is not that you're not capable of not being depressed. The challenge is that she believes she needs to be depressed. Now, that's a pretty ugly thing to say, but it's true. Because we live in a culture that if you weren't really sad when you lose somebody, then obviously you don't care. But are there cultures, I'm just curious, where someone dies, where their belief is death is the beginning and not the end, that death is graduation, and where they not only believe that, like intellectually believe it, but they know it in their soul, and since they believe that and know it, they also believe that to be sad is blasphemy or a form of selfishness, because it means you don't really want them to have it. You're thinking about yourself and not their better good. And I'm not suggesting that's all true, but are there cultures that believe that and where people never really feel depressed? Yes or no? So what we feel is based upon three patterns, I said. One of those patterns I should tell you right now is a pattern of physiology, which is a fancy word for the way we use our physical body. Now, very often people come to me and they say things like, Mr. Robbins, I don't know what it is, but I feel down all the time. And other people, I don't know what it is, I feel so up. Why do you think I feel so up all the time? Right? Or some people come to me and say, Mr. Robbins, I don't know what it is, but I feel angry all the time. You think you could help me? So why don't we start with your face? Okay? I mean, think about it. You don't feel an emotion, you do an emotion. I want you to get this. Now, I know you react, most of you, to some trigger in the environment, but can someone else have the same trigger and react differently? Yes or no? That's called wisdom, it's called intelligence, that's called using the gifts God gave you instead of just reacting like an animal. And we all are going to react at times, but you don't want to stay there for months and months and months and months, or years, or days, or even hours. You want to raise the standard. So it doesn't mean you don't feel feelings. I mean, I have sad feelings, I have hurt feelings, I have frustration feelings, don't get me wrong, but I don't live there. And sometimes it's good to feel those for a short burst, just enough to get you to do something, to make something better, or to appreciate something. But to live there, see, some people do it so much, over and over and over again, until pretty soon, this is all they do, continuously. It's conditioned. And then they go, I can't help it. Right? I can't, I'm telling you. Yes, you can. Start talking like a human. Because you behave differently in a different state, and you're totally in control of your state. Your state is not controlled by what someone else says, or what someone else does, or what you see in the environment. You have one unbelievable gift from your Creator that we all cannot deny, and that is the capacity, in a moment's notice, in a heartbeat, to change your state. Every hero does it. When the going gets tough, somehow they get outside their own fear, their own pain, and they step up. All it is a state change. A hero is a state of mind. Sometimes it's time to be your own hero instead of waiting for someone else to rescue you. So physiology is the first part. Second pattern is a pattern of language. Now, language is an interesting thing. There are two distinctions here. One distinction I call TV. TV stands for transformational vocabulary. There are certain words, as I said earlier, that will magnify human emotion, and certain words that will lower the intensity of human emotion. So you just got to notice which words. If you say to somebody something like, you know, I really like you a lot, that gives a different experience than if you say, I love you. That's a very different experience than if you said something even more colorful. Transformational vocabulary means there are certain words that just by changing a word, you change your states. Like, Have you ever heard someone listen to a speaker that just listening to them like moved you or inspired you, like maybe a Martin Luther King or a John F. Kennedy or somebody of that nature? How many remember somebody like that? Say I. Well, they moved you with just words, and words that have a vocal quality probably attached to it. But guess who's moving you every day with words? You are. But the problem is most of you aren't noticing the key words that either make you depressed or make you excited. Now, sometimes we put a group of words together and we start developing a belief system, but the way we develop it is we incant it. Most of the things you believe started as what I call incantations. What's an incantation? An incantation is like when you say something again and again and again with emotional intensities. It's not like an affirmation. You can go, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy, I'm happy. Still not feel happy. That's an affirmation. What turns an affirmation into an incantation is when your entire physiology is involved. Because then what it does, it sends different signals to your nervous system that you mean it when you say something. Like you can say to somebody something like, I love you, or you can say, I love you, or you can say, I love you. And you're sending a different message, right, to the body by the way you incanted it. It's not just the word. So an incantation is when you say a phrase again and again with enough physiology, emotional intensity that it wires your brain. It's like, ever had this experience? Somebody says, hey, could you get me the salt? And you think to yourself, I don't know where the salt is, right? And so you say, I don't know where the salt is. And they say, well, it's just in the kitchen. You've been there. It's on the second shelf. I don't know where it is. Come on, just go get it. I don't know where the salt is. Come on, go get it yourself. I don't know where it is. Go get it. Fine, I don't know where the salt is. I don't know where the salt is. I can't find the salt. I can't find the salt. You open up, I can't find the salt. You look, I can't find the salt. It's not here. It's on the second shelf. Can't find the salt, can't find the salt, can't find it. I can't find the salt. They walk in, stand right next to you, reach right in front of your face and go, what is this? How many have had one of these experiences? Say I. Now, did your eyes see the salt? Yes. But your brain did not allow you to perceive the salt because you incanted 20 times. You couldn't find it, and your brain doesn't want to make you turn you into a liar. Okay? And we do this to ourselves all the time, right? In psychology, there's a term for it. We call it a scotoma, a blind spot. Where you ever talk to somebody and like you're using light, they can't even see it. It's like right there in their face, and it's an idea. It's because they've been incanting it forever. So people come to me, Mr. Robbins, I just can't figure out what I want for my life. I can't figure out what I want. I don't know what I want. I can't figure out what I want. Why do you think I can't figure out what I want? Maybe because you just said 12 times I can't figure it out with total emotional intensity. Maybe a clue. Okay? You have to be careful about your incantations. Okay? Now, so language, there's certain phrases we use, there's certain words we use that lock us into those states. They're like hypnosis. Like remember in the, you read mythology or the times of King Arthur and, Merlin the magician would come along and he would incant these phrases over and over again, right? And what happened? He'd turn a frog into a prince or a prince into a frog. Well, that's what we're doing to ourselves all the time. So we got to be smart and start noticing those triggers. And those phrases put you in those states. It's not what happened. It's what you're doing with your body, and it's what you're incanting or the words you're using. Then the third pattern that creates any emotion you're feeling is the pattern of what you focus on and what you believe about it. Focus/belief. What you focus on and what you believe about it. If you are in a position where you believe that nothing ever works for you, then that belief will begin to take over and you'll start to feel that way. Now, if you take somebody who's depressed and you give them a drug, will it work? Yes, because it changes the pattern of physiology for the moment. When you change someone's biochemistry, that changes the way they respond for the moment. But when that person takes that drug, but then they keep focusing on what they don't want or they don't have in their life, or what's missing, or they don't have a future, and they keep incanting it, even though they took the drug, these two will overpower this one. That's how someone could take a drug, an antidepressant, and still be depressed. And the person says, oh, we just got the wrong brand. Let's mix two of these together and overcome it. See, what that's called is trying to put a Band-Aid on something that's not going to heal because you haven't dealt with the source of it. And dealing with the source of it's really quite easy. We got to change the belief that makes us keep using that physiology. But very often we don't have to do that. We just change the pattern of physiology, the belief goes away. The secret, though, is to condition it so it stays. Now, obviously, there's more to it than what I'm talking about, but this is the fundamental basis of making your life work. Because whatever you think your life working is will come down to some emotions. You want to feel love and joy and excitement and passion and peace and connection to God and your friends and all that stuff. And guess what? You're doing all of it or you're not doing all of it. And if you're not doing it, we just got to see what are you doing and let's change it. The only reason you don't is you don't believe it's possible. The only reason you don't is because you keep using the same physiology. You go, I don't know why I'm so scared. I don't know why. And then all of a sudden we change it and everything shifts. And then what we now do is condition it. So the question is this: what is it that stops you from getting what you want? And the answer is fear. That's it. Fear of failure, fear of success, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown, feeling of being disappointed, that fear of not looking good. It's just fear. Now, no achievers ever admit to being fearful. They're just stressed. You say, well, I'm really stressed because I'm not going to make the meeting. What you're really saying is, I'm afraid I'm not going to make the meeting. Well, what happens if you don't make the meeting? Then someone will be upset with me, or I won't be this, or I won't be perfect, or I won't be whatever, and I won't meet the rules, and then I won't feel good. It's fear. Next time you say you're stressed, just tell yourself the truth. You're afraid, right? Even if you're an achiever, yes, you do have fears. Having fears is called being human. The secret, though, is when you identify it, is to attack it and to change it. And the fastest way, by the way, of these three to change one state is the first quadrant of the triad, physiology. A radical change in physiology will change you faster than anything you can try and think yourself into. Because what you're doing is, it's like changing the plug. You know, you got a great computer, but you don't plug it in, it's not going to work too well. And when you change your physiology, it's like TV, it's like changing the channel. Now you go from a sad story to an adventure, just by making a change in the channel, the way you use your physiology in that moment, okay? So think of it in those terms. Physiology, language, focus/belief. Anything you want to change will come down to changing those three things. I got a phone call, found out there's a lady, some of you remember, an entertainer named Carly Simon. Carly Simon couldn't get on stage. And I heard she couldn't get on stage, and somebody was talking to me, and I wasn't able to come help her because I just wasn't available. But I did find out from the friend what her symptoms were. Here's what she would do. She would do something very similar to what I had seen as a pattern with someone else. In fact, let me give you someone else first. I meet Bruce Springsteen for the first time. Meet Bruce, and I'm a big fan. I'm like really excited to meet him, like he's my hero, right? And so I go up to talk to him and everything else, and as I'm talking to him, he's really nice, and I said, tell me something. What's it like for you on stage? Do you still get juiced? Is it still like, does your body get going, does your mind get going, or are you just really relaxed? Like, what's it like for you? I'm curious after all these years. He said, are you kidding me? He said, every single time I go out there, he said, I feel a certain thing happen in my body. I want you to hear these parallels. Here's what Carly Simon says. Here's what he says about going on stage. Carly Simon says, when I think about going on stage, what happens is my heart starts beating really, really fast. And she goes, and then my whole thing, my muscles in my hands start to tighten up, and I start to sweat, and my breathing starts to speed up. And as I think about going out there, she says, everything starts speeding up faster and faster. I feel all this tension, all this pressure, and she goes, and then I know I'm having a panic attack and I can't go out. Bruce Springsteen says, when I think about going out there, he said, like everything in my body starts speeding up. And he said, I feel this tension in my hands, and I start sweating. He said, just still today, just like before, my heart starts beating like crazy. He said, right then I go, man, I know I'm ready. Someone starts to feel something, go, oh my God, I'm so stressed, right? Oh, I'm feeling stressed. You could go, oh, I'm feeling excited. Because stressed and excited are very close, aren't they? And what happens is a subtle change, and usually when you put the language on it, it shifts it. You may have been on the verge, you could go from either one. Someone says, oh, I'm breaking down. No, maybe you're breaking through. So you gotta know that this is not some fancy schmancy like psychobabble. This is human physiology. So fear is the only thing that stops you. How fast can you get out of fear? Heartbeat. But most of you don't for two reasons. It's not a must. You don't have a standard that says, I must. When you must, you do. Watch people in war. Some of them go collapse, but most of them figure it's a must, and they figure it out, don't they? I go watch that an unbelievably intense movie about Private Ryan. I haven't seen it, but I've heard a bunch of people tell me about it. It sounds like you get a real reality check of what war is like, and you see how people function in that environment. It's just a must, so they figure it out. Stuff they would never normally do day to day. They could never handle day to day. They have to, so they do. Don't make life make you have to. You make the have-tos. So it's proactive. So fear is what stops it. What changes our whole life is action. Why don't we take action? Fear. What do we got to do to get ourselves to do it? We got to make sure that we push ourselves through it by making a decision. The point in which change happens is a decision. Every change in your life that you want will come from something simple, a decision. People go, what does it take to change? Decide. But you go, oh, God sounds so simple and so basic. If it was that easy, you'd already have done it, Mr. Robbins. No, it is that easy and you're still not doing it because you are not putting yourself in a state to decide. See, a real decision is not like a preference. It's not like where you say, I'll try it and see. That's not a decision. Decision comes from Latin. It means like incision, to cut off from. Decision is when you cut off any possibility except the thing you're committed to. It's like that is it. How many of you in this room have ever smoked cigarettes and then one day you finally decided no more, I mean really decided, and you've never touched it again and you're not even tempted to? How many made that decision at one time? Say aye. You know what a real decision is. If I came to you today and I said, would you like a cigarette? Would you go, what brand is it? No, you'd probably say to me, no, I'm not I want you to hear that. You'd not only say, I don't smoke, you'd say, I'm not even that kind of person. You literally divorce yourself from even that kind of person, so it's no effort. When you really decide, it's not an effort. Once you've cut it off, it doesn't take effort. Deciding takes effort, but once you've decided, it's over. You don't think about it anymore. It's like it's easier to fast than it is to diet. Because when you're fasting, somebody offers you something, you don't even think about it. You go, no, I'm not eating. Right? When you're dieting, you're like, well, maybe we could have a little more. This is a little piece of cake. Not that many calories. Right? And pretty soon you're back to where you were again. So a real decision is what you got to make. When you make a real decision, life changes. But it's a real decision, you burn your bridges, you only move forward. Now, the way to get yourself there is to put yourself in state and condition it. Conditioning is this. Build the muscle. Do you do it one time? No. You do it a lot and you do beyond what you're comfortable with, and the muscle expands, and now what used to be hard to do as the muscle grows is easy. That's the same thing with every other kind of muscle. But I'll give you one example. They take monkeys, and I don't approve of this research, but this is what they do. In UC Irvine, University of California, Irvine, they've done these studies where they take monkeys and they will take 4 of their fingers and tape them down. And then they take one finger and they bend it back and forth 10,000 times. And every time they bend this finger back and forth like this, use this as a metaphor. In your brain, for you to do this once, twice, you have to make connections between neurons in your brain. Neuron's a big word for nerve cells. So to do this, imagine, as a metaphor, it's not exactly like this, to do this once, you got to put a connection, a thin thread had to be grown between this neuron and this neuron, as an example, as a metaphor. Do it again, 2 thin threads. Do it 10,000 times, and guess what? You are wired to do this. Here's the point. They untape the monkey's fingers, and what does he do constantly? For no good reason. He's wired, conditioned to do this. Now, how does this relate to you? Well, how many of you go to work the same way every day? You drive on the same on-ramp, go the same direction, get off on the same on-ramp. How many got a pattern like that? Say aye. How many have had a day when you're supposed to go the opposite direction on the freeway or the road, but you're on the cell phone and your brain is at the lunch and you get on the same on-ramp going the same direction that you normally do that's the wrong way? Say aye. You're monkeys. Can you condition yourself to feel depressed to where it feels more comfortable because you go there more often and you're wired to be there? Yes or no? Can you condition yourself to be quick to anger? Yes or no? Can you condition yourself to feeling overwhelmed at the drop of a hat? Can you condition yourself to feel loved all the time? Even if people say, I hate you. Yes, could you still feel loved? Could you condition yourself to feel happy as a consistent way of living all the time? Yes or no? But you know what? Most people don't believe that, but of course it is. It's the same nervous system. But the environment reinforces negative behavior more than positive. People go, how's it going? Oh, my life is so great. Oh, easy for you. So pretty soon you learn to go, yeah, I'm doing okay. You don't want to get too good because then your peer group would be unhappy with you because they're not feeling so good. So you learn to downplay it. And then you don't reward yourself so your brain doesn't go for more. Because it goes, we got to stay right on in here. This is our little comfort zone. So we're going to condition ourselves to be in a peak state, especially when you're exhausted. Because like, remember when you're doing the muscle? The one where you can't lift one more and you make yourself do it, that's where you get all the growth. So when you're most tired is when you got to push yourself. If you didn't listen to anything I said, but all you did was keep yourself in a peak state for 3 days, you'll develop something called emotional muscle. And emotional muscle is where your whole life comes in. Repetition is the mother of skill until it gets conditioned, until it's automatic. Now I'll give you a clue. You know what I told you about them doing this with the finger of the animal? Here's what they discovered. Don't have to do this 10,000 times. All you got to do is do this about 2 dozen, max 3 dozen. If every time they do this, they stimulate the pleasure center of the brain of the animal. And they do that literally physically by pushing a little needle in the area of the brain that creates pleasure. But what happens is when you do this, they do this and they create pleasure. Instead of 1 string, they get like 500 every time you do it with pleasure. So what happens is you can condition yourself with that pleasure, and you can get this done in a short time. It doesn't have to take you 5 years. So we want to purposely put ourselves in these peak states over and over again, not as a rah-rah session, but literally as a training tool for our human nervous system. How many follow this? Say I. And the secret is when you don't feel like doing it, that's when you got to do it the most, because that's when you'll get the real conditioning. But don't just do it like, all right, yes. Okay? You got to smile and make yourself feel good while you're doing it and make it better each time. How many of you have ever said, I want to change something? Like, I want to lose weight, I wanted this, I wanted that, and you started to create change only to go back to where you were. How many have done this? Say I. I want to show you how to create lasting change, because anybody can change for the moment, but lasting change is what you're really after. And I'll tell you a little background on this, 2-second background. Most of my career, early on, I just loved people and I wanted to make changes in my own life initially. So I became obsessed with saying, okay, what are the best tools? How can I change? And early in my life, when I was about 16 years old, I decided I want to read a book a day. Because I figured, man, if I could take 10 years, like someone took 10 years to write a book, let's say, and I could take 10 years of their experience and absorb it in a day, and I did that for the course of a couple of years, I realized, I believed anyway, I would have such an incredible experiential base without having to have all the years. And I did it primarily because I wanted to improve myself. I wanted to make changes. I grew up in an environment I didn't like. Well, I didn't quite do that, but I read about 700 books over the period of about 7 or 8 years, 7.5 years, all in the area of human development, psychology, physiology, anything I thought could really make a difference for people. And then what I did was I actually applied what I learned to a great extent, because lots of people get lots of knowledge, but they don't use it. So I kept trying to use it, and as I made changes in myself, it became natural as I got excited and saw results, and my friends saw results in me, start helping my friends. And then I got addicted to that. I got addicted to having the solutions and being able to help people I really cared about. And pretty soon by the time I was in high school, I was known as Mr. Solution. You had a problem, you saw me. Especially if you were a girl and had a problem with your boyfriend, I would be happy to change those problems, right? But the point of the matter is, I really did. I mean, I was obsessed by it. And then as I developed this as my career, I developed more and more skills. And then gradually, by the time I was 20 years old, 19, 20 years old, I became exposed to a series of what at that time were the cutting edge tools in creating change, like really rapid fire change. Not lying on your back, freely associating and analyzing what's wrong with your life, but really making the change happen now. And in those days, the tools were things like neuro-linguistic programming, which you probably have heard of by now, which I wouldn't honestly say is cutting edge anymore, but there's some great tools in there that I still use, some of which I'll share with you this weekend. They're just great, fundamental tools. And Gestalt, which is really antiquated now, but there's still some useful tools in it, or Ericksonian patterns. And I went out and I learned this stuff, and I learned how you could like wipe out a person's lifetime phobia in 10, 20, 30, 40 minutes as opposed to 4, 5, 6, or 7 years. And my advantage was I didn't know what I couldn't do, because I didn't have years of being a therapist and having to spend years with a customer or a client trying to help them turn around. And so when I went to these classes, I convinced the owner to let me, or I should say the founder of these technologies, and at least in NLP, his name was John Grinder, to let me in these classes, because in those days it was always marriage and family counselors, psychologists, and psychiatrists. I had no such degrees, but that was my advantage. And I talked my way in these classes just by pure persistence. And I sat in the classes, and after 3 or 4 days, we'd learn like how to wipe out a phobia in a short period of time. And I remember turning to these, it was a 6-month course, and I turned to these other therapists in the class, and they said, hey guys, let's go find some phobics and cure them. And they all looked at me like, you're crazy, you're insane, it's obvious you're not an educated man. I said, what do you mean? They go, well, this is a 6-month training program. You gotta go through all 6 months. Then you go through a testing procedure. And then if you qualify the testing procedure, then you get certified. And then once you're certified, you can start doing this with people. And are you insane? I'm a business person. I don't wait for somebody to certify me to apply something that's useful. I said, I'm gonna go do it now. So picture this in your mind. I'm in Los Angeles, California. I've got 4 days of training. It's 11 o'clock at night, and I'm looking for someone to help. I thought, where do you go to help somebody at 11 o'clock? Where do you find somebody who needs help at 11 o'clock at night in LA? Denny's. I figure